Alright, how's it going, everyone? This is Anon. None of this is financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. Alright, let's get started, get set up. Let's see what's going on here. Excuse me. What's up, Jerry? How are you, bud? How's it going? How you been? I guess that's New York Giants, right? Faking as Tarifa. Alright, did that get pushed out to the Discord? I think it might have. I don't know. We'll find out. Oh, it's 15 updates to install. Not bad, working overnights, but back to regular hours. Been working nights, but back to regular hours now. Yeah. Well, that's good. I was going to say back to normal, right? Always a good thing. Let's check. Oh, I got hit up a bunch of times on Discord. Totally fine. What do I think of ATER's option chain for tomorrow? I mean, they're either going to pin it right where we're at under 150, or if they do go over it, then yeah, it's more stacked than it has been. Let me see if I can pull up ATER's option chain and break it down. You know, we've got exciting things going on with GNS, and we've got I called that out at 50 cents in the main chat room, main trading room. All right, so let me pull up first. I don't think you're first. There's been some people in here. All right, so we're pulling up ATER's option chains real quick for tomorrow. I noticed it did die down today. We didn't get anywhere near as much volume. Yeah, I mean, if they wanted to push it up tomorrow, I'm sure that would be, there would be a ton of stuff falling in the money if they pushed it. But to be honest with you, I don't think that's going to happen. I think the market maker's plenty happy burning all the, bullish calls, and, that's what I think is going to happen. Excuse me. ATER. Okay, here we go. Oh, first like. There you go. Then you are the first one. All right. So we'll go ahead, pull up this picture, bring it over. Got to zoom in. Zoom. Yeah, I personally, I think they're going to try to. I mean, they'd love to push it under 1 if they can. I don't know if they're going to be able to. If the market tanks tomorrow and ETFs are just naturally selling, like the algos are just selling, there's a chance that they could push it down enough to get sub 1, maybe some short exempts on the or the market makers' parts. But overall, I think there's people that want to keep it over 1 so it remains compliant. So that'll be the battle there, is probably my guess, around 1. Could it be for 150? Sure. But it all depends on who's on which side. Like, if Armistice is trying to push it up now and into the next couple weeks, then, we could see it fly a little bit tomorrow. But if they're not, if it's going against the market, we'll see. Yana's move pushed it higher. The market maker and Armistice were ready to go. They want to keep it above $1 and keep playing with the 150s. Yeah, I mean, that's probably what they're doing. The IV's been so low on Ethereum, to be honest with you, that it's one of those things where, if they want to push it up, this is the time. All right, so let me grab real quick this. All right. So here's Ethereum's option chain. Oop, nothing to show here. There is something to show there. I don't know why it disappeared. Okay. So obviously there's a good amount of open interest here at 150. There's not a ton. Like most people that are buying these 750 puts, I'm guessing at this point that that's like, you know, that's just them. That's a safe place to be. They can hammer it on there. Most of those have to get hedged because they're deep in the money. So I don't see it foresee it running tomorrow. But you know, if it does, it would be basically a little bit of a gamma ramp. Not much, but once they get past here, if some of these start filling out, then yeah, there's a little bit. But this is the most stacked it's been in a long time, is what I can tell you. I can tell you right now, the only people that are playing these are just for the Ivy spike, but the theta's decaying so fast that it won't matter. So these are people who were just YOLOing a long time ago, and they probably just left it open there because it's worth a penny, so nobody cares at this point because they lost all their money anyway. So, what's up, Ozzy? How are you, bud? Called out GMM. I don't know that one, I don't think. Grammar AG. Yeah, Dirty. I don't remember you calling that out, but if you were in on it, great. Did you call it out like a while ago? Because it was obviously like consolidating there, and then it popped. Yeah. All right. So let's take a look at the SPY today. All right. So it's been respecting this downtrend. I mean, I drew this thing out months ago, and it's literally respecting this thing like to the T. Like you can see every single one of the times it touches this, it rejects and goes down, makes a lower low. Broke through there, pushed up, or sorry, they gapped up that morning. They tried to get above this thing based off the CPI data, and it got hammered down. And then the next day dropped down, and actually there was a gap here which they filled, I guess yesterday or the day before. So yeah, I mean, from what I'm seeing right here, like it looks like it rejected, and now we'll see where it goes. Now that's not great, obviously, for the rest of. What does it say? Tarifa called it. Oh, GMM, yeah. Give me money. It's random, not me. And that's not actually Tarifa. That's just New York Giants. All right. For anyone that doesn't understand, we're talking about Discord people, and if you're wanting to join the Discord, it's free. You can come and hang out with us. I'll put a link in there just so we can have it up. But here we go. So we'll generate a new link, copy, and paste it in here. Okay, so there's the free Discord link. Everyone in there, you know, we all know each other. You feel free to join and ask questions and do whatever. But okay, so yep, rejected. We'll see. I mean, the next logical level is down here at the 340s, unless all of a sudden we got some, you know, interesting news. It broke through, back tested, and then it would have to run up and fill this gap. That'd be the next area of 420. So basically, you know, we're not quite halfway, but pretty close to halfway in between these two gaps. My guess is at this point is we're still in the downtrend. Like this one came through an uptrend, but it never had enough power to break through. Now we did another little small uptrend, but it rejected nicely off that, you know, resistance line. So I mean, like at this point, we got to stick with the trend. And what I'm seeing at this point is at least some, you know, trailing. So yeah, we make fun of each other. What's my dog doing? Charlie, what are you doing? Come here. Sorry. Charlie, what are you doing? He's into something. Hold on 1 second. What are you doing? Here. Okay, sorry. I don't know what he was getting into. He's curled by my feet now. Anyway, so yeah, at this point right now, if this was to keep going, you would imagine it would probably come down, like this, and then this is where I would think it would probably either bounce, because we had a gap over here that it literally bounced off of, and then just instantly that day ran really hard up. I actually missed the entry because I had a bunch of puts, and I didn't get to sell them in time. And literally by the time it was like the afternoon, I'm like, this thing's not going back. Like, it literally went from like 3% down on the SPY to it, was like 3% up. So the Grand Chahi. Yes, my dog's name is Charlie. Okay. So let's take a look at. So look, we need to look at this because this is a weird one. So obviously this stock's been volatile in the past. It's had a couple run-ups, and then it was just consolidating down here forever. Then the CEO announces that they're going to put out an ATM like 2 or 3 days before he announces that he's going after shorts. And to me, that looked like a perfect setup to be like, oh, this guy's just going to basically get retail on board and issue out an ATM and dilute on people when they're buying. Now, here's the only thing. The interesting thing is their short interest is non-existent. They were at 0.5, so less than 1% short interest. So it looks like on paper that they were not shorted. However, though, he's claiming that they have evidence of naked shorting. And you can look back here. They didn't really have a ton of short interest ever. But there are other ways of lowering a stock down and just kind of hammering it. Now, here's the only thing, right? So the cost to borrow is shot up significantly. You're talking about this thing's now over 100% cost to borrow. They're very, very short supply of this, and I think the FTDs are going to stack up because this stock does not have a ton of shares. So you only have 24.7 million shares, right? But apparently insiders own a good amount of them, so their float is only 7 to 10 million. So there's not a huge float on this thing. And I don't know if you guys remember back in the day, some of the low float stocks just absolutely got exploded because you had massive amounts of people buying in this thing. And the FTDs were just piling up, and it wasn't a straight line. I mean, it chopped around a good bit on I don't know. Did they show? They don't have. Let's see if we can find support. Chart. Oh no, my dog's getting into something. Charlie. My kids left crackers out, and he ate all the crackers. That's what that sound was. It was crunching away in the background. Sorry about that. Okay, so check this out. This run up to 60, right? This run up to 60 happened, and it was just chilling down here. It was at a low of 2, and then retail kind of came in and was buying up when it was really cheap, and it kept consolidating. It was getting into an uptrend, and then all of a sudden, all the FTDs from back here all hit basically here. And at one point, now this one had options, but at one point they had the entire float locked up in in the money $1 options, and this thing exploded all the way up to $60 a share. So I mean, you're talking about massive squeeze. Now that had 20 million shares, the float was bigger on this one when it happened. This thing only has like 10 million shares. So like, and it's getting national attention. So it's interesting because I don't know if it's actually a short squeeze or if this guy was just smart enough to realize that retail absolutely hates shorts and that he issued out an ATM to raise cash. And so, you know, it could just be a genius play, maybe illegal also, but it all depends. Maybe he's right. Maybe they did like naked short his company, and this thing's gonna massively squeeze because it's gonna squeeze out anyone that was shorting the stock. And at one point they were at $10, so if the shorts got in there, closed their positions down here, but just kept hammering it down with nakeds, thinking this company would go out of business. I don't know, but this is a weird one because like they traded 250 million shares today on a 10 million share float. Or it might even be a 7 million share float. I mean, it's 10 million. Okay. So 10 million share float, and we're talking about like not a lot of reported short interest, but this thing's getting massive, massive attention. And they don't really need the cash, or not like, they got like 2 years of cash left based off their current cash burn. They do have these note convertibles over at $5. So like, yeah, I did watch that video about the Torchlight guy. And I know that was one of those mergers where everyone was like, oh, see what happens. And honestly, I think the same thing happened with Spurt. And like Support, when it went through its merger, instantly dropped and everyone just ignored it. And like, is it possible that the entire time they were just like, okay, we're just gonna like cover all this up, and eventually Gree's gonna go out of business, and we're just gonna bury all those failure to delivers and naked shorts that were on this thing? Because Support almost ran up a second time on a huge gamma ramp, so it was very interesting. Yeah, I did watch that video you sent me. That was interesting. So I don't know what the deal is with this thing, because like, we know that they have an ATM registered, and they even mentioned it here today. The PR mentioned a $7.5 million equity line, but nothing's been registered yet. So like, at this point, they don't have it in the system. So there's no filing for it at this point. Like, it was basically just, we might raise money. Yeah, I don't think I saw anything on that. Let's see. But yeah, like, this is a very, very interesting thing that's kind of been going on. And, I don't think he's wrong. I think he's, did they issue it here? I'm just trying to remember. I swear I saw it. It was basically just saying, yeah, here it is. This is a non-binding term for 7.5 million shares. So, but it's not actually been like officially registered. It was a press release, but it's not like in the SEC system yet. So I don't know. I mean, I think this thing's going to gap up tomorrow, and then, I mean, they do have those notes convertible at 5. That would slow things down. But I mean, this thing seems to be on fire. Like, I don't know if you guys saw, but it was like 200% up today. So this is an interesting one. And, how high can it go? Well, it's definitely going to slow down around 5. Can it go, it's going to gap up. They've put a bunch of gaps on this thing already. Like, it gapped up here, gapped up there, gapped up here. So, but look at this volume. Like, we were talking about this, this volume being a lot for the stock. It went today all the way up to like 250 million, 200, was it 270 million? I don't know. It was a lot of volume. Yeah, it's got this is a weird like stock, and INDO was a weird one too, because this tiny float, and then it seemed to just kind of go away. So there's that. Ethereum, basically not as much volume as obviously 2 or 3 days ago, but that's the pattern. It actually broke the last couple patterns that we saw, which was the huge candle, 2 red days. we had the huge candle. This was a red day, and then it started out red, but then it kind of pushed up into the AM or the PM, and then basically finished. So this was still like that downward pattern, but it just didn't go as low. So, could this be another warrant run where they try to push this thing up and then unlock these warrants up here? Because they're going to basically start selling. I don't know if their strategy is going to be try to go up as high as possible, sell the shares, and then unlock these warrants, and then try to sell them too, and then that way they end up with just these ones down here. That's a possibility. For a lot of people, that would be a godsend because they were, if they're not long, they were in it from the squeeze, and so if you average down, kind of like what a lot of us were doing inside the Discord. This was the line that I'm trying to get below. I'm not there yet, but, still averaging down. But it's been harder because we actually had that massive day, and I was hoping to be able to buy more down this area. So they're April 4th warrants. That's when they're eligible. So, and I actually marked it right here. So I don't know if you can see this, but Armistice can exercise warrants after April 4th, which is this line I drew right here. So this is April 4th. So if you kind of look at where we're at, the idea is, does this thing kind of go up here, and then, they can start selling off some things, unlock these warrants, and then, I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, you saw this was a massive day. I mean, that was like up 60% at one point in a day, which is, April 4th is the actual date. ASMA, you're asking about TCBP. I don't know that one. Let's see. TCBP. They have a ton of dilution registered in comparison to their small shares outstanding. But they're out of cash, so they need it. So they've got right now this S1 offering that was filed. And then you've got warrants here at $5. Two of them registered for $5 each. You've got pre-funded warrants are basically like, and look, it's Armistice that owns them, and Renaissance. So these ones right here, they can basically execute anytime. IPO ones are 25. You're not going to see those things. This one's not even registered. So it looks like they're about to basically times, I guess, what was it? Times 4. They're 4xing their float. So that'd be, what's their ticker doing? Let's see. TCBP. Did they have a massive day? They had a lot of volume. It came down. But yeah, they've got this gap here. That's what I'd be playing for, to be honest with you. I'd be playing for this gap down right here. That's a pretty sizable gap. So, I mean, that's kind of the target, but they're going to probably push it up to basically unlock their warrants, and that could be the signal that this thing will pop at some point. But there's a lot of luck that goes into this. Like, for example, if everyone's piling in on, for example, GNS, this one might go under the radar, and then you won't get as many, because they kind of need retail to FOMO into these things so they can dilute down on them. So, what's up, Hustle? How are you, bud? How about DTC? Yeah, my good old friend DTC. So DTC's been interesting because they're not doing a thing, to be honest with you. They're right where they were. They have line of credits all lined up. They're overall, like, nothing's wrong with them. They have high institutional ownership, so a lot of people that are like institutions own them. It's a relatively low float stock in comparison to like some of the other ones. It's just it's not moving anywhere. They're probably priced right about where they're supposed to be, which is probably why they're not moving a ton. Just based off of cash and all that stuff, and then also their like metrics, like they're roughly about where they're supposed to be as far as like fair value in this kind of market. So, the short interest is not very high on them. Though it could be one of those situations where they push stuff down, but I mean they've got high institutional ownership. If you look at who owns them, these three right here own the majority of the company by themselves. And then on top of it, you had these guys come in, the American Century, Vanguard, BlackRock. So, I mean, I think people are just kind of waiting till something good happens on them, and then they'll probably push up the price and exit. But, we'll see. But it's in that weird, like, internet retail space of, like, they're starting to get stuff pushed out, and as that distribution increases, they'll probably start coming up with better numbers, and at that point, the stock will be worth more. So, and then AVYA. Yeah, I'll just show you the chart though, real quick on DTC. So the chart on DTC's literally just been consolidating in this range for a long time. They push it down every once in a while when the SPY gets like hammered, but like this is a stock that literally just I'm just accumulating, and I'm just going to continue accumulating the stock because at some point it's going to run. But, this is kind of like one of those where I'm pretty much long on these guys. Them, BBAI, they've had a weird thing, but I think, they've got this huge gap up here over at what was that 926 down to like 7. And these guys won a $900 million contract. So they have a huge gap here. They also need to like fill this gap here. So I'm hoping this is going to push down, and then I'm going to be able to accumulate, and this thing's going to bounce off this bottom line. I bet you. If they get this thing pushed down, it's going to bounce off this hard, and it's going to come back up into this range. Because this is probably about where the stock's worth, this like $2 to $3 range, just in the short term, while they kind of figure out like when they start like reporting how much cash flow is coming in from the company, because we don't have the details of the contract, but they won a $900 million contract on top of a $14.5 million contract from the Army. So the Air Force one's $900 million, and then the Army one is $14.5 million. They also have other customers besides the government, but those two are large ones. So I'm keeping my eye on BBAI just because, they did do a private placement, which is why it dropped from here, because it was kind of like in this range. And then once they announced the private placement, they pushed it down. And so my hope is it gets down, bounces off here. I'm able to just load the boat here. And then I think it's coming back up here to fill that gap at some point. So, yeah. Let's see. Random said, we're getting active in the investor days. Whatever was the first income tax checks started coming out. That's it. ASO wants, hold on. You want Ortex for, you're still in Prague or Bior or whatever it's called now. Biora. Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to understand like who these guys. They're obviously biotech. They need cash badly. Like they have very little cash left, and they're burning cash at a pretty high rate. They've got these $8 warrants, $8, and then they've got some notes convertible like at 90. But like these guys need cash, and they've done a couple. Like they did these RDOs at 30 cents. 150. So like they diluted a good amount more. This was during they did I think they did an ATM. So I don't know if you guys remember this. Remember when Prague was getting spammed all over the short squeeze Reddit, and there was frogs everywhere, and like I was telling people, I'm like, they're literally issuing an ATM to raise cash, and they're taking advantage of the fact that nobody really was paying attention to that. Everyone was like, oh, the stock's moving up, like it's going to squeeze. And I'm like, no, they have an active ATM, and they're literally diluting on top of you guys. If you look at the history on that, like this run up here, right? And like they were literally like pushing this thing up because they were like, quote unquote, getting squeezed, but they weren't. They were literally issuing out shares. So now they've done a resplit, right? Since then they did a split somewhere. Yeah, the split happened here. It was a 25-1. So, but yeah, like I'm sure at some point they did have a bunch of shares going out, but I mean, this is a stock that, for me, I'm more interested in seeing, will it close this gap here? That'd be a nice run. Because right now the stock's at $4 and the gap is up here at like 38. So, yeah, at some point you will see this thing move. But they're going to have to come up with some better things. But I don't think this is so much a squeeze thing anymore. Like if you look here on the like short interest, I don't think it's that high, is it? Well, I could be wrong. Let's see. Short interest of this free float is showing 200%. I don't think that's right. But if you look at this, I think what's happened is Ortex has not adjusted for the split. So, like, my guess would be the shares outstanding on this thing. Yeah, they're only listing shares outstanding being 4.67 million. And that's obviously not right, right? So, how many shares are outstanding? That's the float, is 7 million. So, how many shares outstanding on BR? $29.7 million. Is that what right? No, that's from July. Yeah, I think the float's wrong in Ortex. So I don't think it's as high as what they're saying. Like they're saying it's 200% shorted. I don't think that's correct. I think they just haven't done the, and they're sticking with it. So like right here, they're saying that there's still 11 million shorts. Now, if we did the math on this, if you took, I guess, 11,400,000, okay, and then divided by 25, so you might have like 456K shares shorted after that 25-1 split. So, I mean, that's massively different than showing 11.4 million against a 10 million float or whatever it is. So that's probably part of the problem is Ortex has not kept up with their data, and so they're telling you this, so what would 456K divided by what do we say the float was, or what's at least what they're saying is 4.67 million. 4.67 million. It's like 10% of the float, roughly. Sorry. Right. So almost 10% of the float. So it's not, if you're going off Ortex numbers, that's incorrect. It would be roughly around a little bit under 10% short interest on this one. But yeah, I mean, that's what I'd be aiming for if I was in this stock. I also need to see that they're going to have some sort of like, did they get some volume? They got some volume the last couple of days, didn't they? But then it kind of died off, right? It was like this massive, that was the split, right? It was like after the split a couple of days, and then it had some massive volume, and then it's died off since then. That would be quite a run if it was able to make that gap. But I mean, how's the company actually doing? Let me see if I can read through something. Okay, we can do a little math, I guess. All right. If you had 194,12804 divided by 25, that would give you 7.6 million, right? So that's actually even, so yeah, so they're even less than that. So if you did the 456, sorry, I need to do 11,400, right? 11 million divided by 25. Yep. And so that divided by, what do we say it was? It was like 7616512. It's like 6% shorted. So hope newbie investors pump our stocks. All right. Thoughts on PXMD? I don't know that one, so I have to look it up. PXMD. So they have, it looks like an equity line of credit for 13 million. Their cash is okay. They have pre-IPO warrants that aren't registered yet at $3 a share. Not a lot of institutional ownership, though. Short interest is 12%. Let's see if we can back that up with this. PXMD. Okay. They think it is 27% shorted. That's quite a bit different than what Dilution Tracker has. Let's see. It looks like they've been shorting it, though. Because you look here, the shorting is going up. It's not like massive, but like, did they do something here? It looks like it was considered 42% of the free float here, but then it dropped, even though the numbers went up. Did they dilute? They must have, right? Yeah, the cost to borrow is high. 600% cost to borrow. I mean, I always take Ortex data with a grain of salt because it's like, you just saw on the last ticker on BIOR that basically they didn't even keep up with the split. So BIOR basically was showing that they were 200% shorted, even though in all actuality, once I did the math on it, they're about 6% shorted, because what they're showing you is this. They're saying, oh my God, this thing's 200% shorted of the free float. And then when you actually do the math on it, it's like 6%, because they did a 25-to-1 split, but they didn't actually update this. So this is the free float, I guess. So there must be insiders that own some, which is why maybe it's less than the 7. But, once again, I don't trust Ortex that well. So but yeah, I mean, I'm just looking here. I mean, it looks like it double bottomed there. So that would have been a good entry point there. And now it's in an uptrend right now. The question is, it's a small float. It's very small shares outstanding, very small float. So I mean, if it got some interest from like retail, it could move and pop, just because that's a tiny float. But they got about a year's, but they're going to want to raise cash. That's what's going to end up happening. So it looks like what they do, they develop I don't even know, purogenic drugs to treat disorders with interactable neurologic symptoms, including autism. I don't know any of these other ones. SARS. So yeah, I mean, this could be one that just pops because it's, you know, if it actually breaks through with something, they'll get acquired by a bigger pharmaceutical. So yeah, that's, I mean, it's not a horrible idea. I mean, if you were able to time it and you got in, you know, oops, wrong ticker. If you got in down here when it hit the double bottom, that would have been like a great entry point. Here, it's like, okay, you know, you're definitely still in an uptrend, but like if it breaks down when the SPY it crashes down, or if it does crash down, you know, it could get dragged down again. So AZYO, you guys and your biotechs. Biotechs are so, I mean, that's a large gap. So what I can tell you is this thing looks like it's consolidating. I don't know how long it will do that, but it's going to probably want to fill this gap here. So that would be an interesting one. Wait, what did Hustle say? I used to be a pharma rep calling on neurologists. Look at the studies. I mean, are you saying it works? Their stuff is good? Or which one are you talking about? Because this is also a biotech. Are you talking about the last one, the PXMD? Yeah, I mean, it's hit or miss. Yeah, like with all those biotechs, like it's feast or famine. That's just the honest truth of them. You'll be sitting there down in the dumps for like sometimes years, and then all of a sudden the stock will fly 800%. Like those, just it's how they work. Okay, let's go back to, or no, we need to finish this one. Okay, so AZYO, let's see, AZYO. Okay, tiny float, right? Not a lot of short interest on it. There is some institutional ownership. Let's see who's smart and is on it. Vanguard. These are obviously some sort of like, you know, investment bankers and, you know, hedge funds probably. BlackRock's got a small position. So it's got a little bit in there. Running out of cash. They've got 7 million left on their shelf. So they can't dilute that much more. So it's lower risk there because they don't have a new shelf registered, but they do need the cash. So, I mean, it wouldn't be shocking, but this is not as low as the last one. The last one, the PXMD, that one had a much smaller float, but, you know, neither one of them has really high short interest, and we'll see. Yeah, but you guys are right. It's all based off news. And so when they get a PR thing, the stocks break out and they look great, and then until they don't. So, so interesting enough, I just wanted to point this out. I just realized, I was like, so today on the SPY, right, we took this downturn. And here, if you look over here, this is the SPY as well. So the volume today was like 87 million, right? I just wanted to point this out. This is what's kind of insane to me. GNS had almost 270 million shares, or like volume, on a stock that has literally like a 10 million share float. So like this thing, this is the volume, it massively spiked. I mean, they traded multiple times the float, like 25 times the float, 27 technically, right? Or something like that. I mean, that's insane. That is crazy. I don't know. I just wanted to point out how much volume that thing got today. I think it's going to gap up tomorrow. It already finished, I believe, at like 280s it finished, but it went up 290% today. And those FTDs are just going to start raining in. Those prime brokers have no shares. There's no way they have shares. So they need GNS to dilute soon. Like, that's the honest truth. This could be another one where it just flies because right time, right place. The CEO, registered an ATM ahead of time before they announced that they were going to fight shorts, and then the fib chart on there. I think you did that right inside the Discord. I'll put it up here real quick. I think you put it in here. Yeah, the fib chart right there. It perfectly was getting up to this 220. So it's already past that because it actually finished 280. So if it gets up to 345, then that's going to hit the second level. And then 441 would be the next one. And then I don't know if it's going to get above here because this is where those notes convertible are. So if it does get up there, this is where it's going to slow down and it'll probably start to retrace. But I mean, from what I understand, they don't have any shares. You can't even short it like as retail. So yeah. So I mean, it's a pretty crazy thing if you think about it. Just reading through. Oh, Billy wants to know when the next run on BBAI is. It will probably come. My guess would be I'm hoping it fills that gap on the downside. Yeah, they've got notes convertible at 5 and GNS. That should be right here. August convertible notes, they issued them at 517. And if you looked on the fib chart, lines up pretty nicely to where that is going to go. So, yep, there's a 538 and a 564. So right around that fib level, that's where I would expect it to kind of go. Timing, the insider buys is where to buy the gems on biotech. I think GNS is going to gap up to, it already gapped there. I think it's going to gap up to like probably 280 to maybe 3 something in the AM, and then it may fall a bit. It all depends. Like at this point right now, those FTDs have to be piling up. Like that thing traded 270 million in volume on a float of 10 million. Like something's got to give. So that's pretty crazy if you think about it. Yeah. So, and with ATER as well, like we talked about this. Oops, don't go too far, but we are here. Is this going to be the push up into this range where Armistice can kind of unload? They paid 190, so we know at some point they have to get above this line to be profitable on those particular shares. So this is kind of a magic line. Once they get above that, then at that point they can start unloading them and make profit. The smartest thing, I think, if they were going to do this, they would do it like this, where you just push it up massively, let the RSI cool down, gap up, and then people kind of go nuts, and then you sell into retail FOMOing into Ethereum. That's their kind of MO. So you push it up, get retail's attention. You have some massive volume days. They're algorithmically trading it up, slapping the ask. And then, when they get it up to a certain point, now I think in this case, we're not getting up to this level again. We're going to be down in this level somewhere. But, there is gaps here. And there's gaps at the 280. So I wonder if I can do this. And that will show up maybe. Yeah, there's a gap here. Right here. There are also gaps. I think there was a gap here. I don't think this gap ever filled, but they're not showing it for whatever reason. I'm traumatized from the waterfalls. Trust me, so are all of us. When's the last date Armistice? It's like 2026. It's a long ways away. So I mean, they could just do it a long ways away. That's always a possibility too. It's a random time for us to run right now. So that's why I'm thinking maybe because they can start unlocking those lower warrants here, they might want to try to get it up here and then, sell off their stuff. And that way, when it falls back down, because we did leave a gap down here at 97 cents, when it falls back down to this range, they can easily push up to the $192, and then there's more shares outstanding as well. So, but they've got plenty of time. If you want to look, we can see on Ethereum. I think the dates on these warrants are redeemable by 2027 and 2026 on some of them. 2026, 2027, 2027, 2027. So, yeah, I mean, it's all dependent on what they want to do. Like, if Ethereum actually turns it around and starts, yeah, they terminated this ATM. So, but I wrote IR for Ethereum, and I said, listen, I think you guys should look at what GNS is doing. And you also probably want to issue out an ATM. And I know that's not a popular thing, but here's the thing. They keep selling these like warrants at really, really low prices. At least with an ATM, you can choose when you want to dilute. Like, they keep doing these RDOs and private placements, and I don't like it because they're doing it at a set price. It's more favored towards Armistice. And, when this thing ran up to here, if they had an ATM locked and loaded, they could have issued out shares up here at $6 and raised a bunch of cash, and they keep instead doing it with, oh, well, we'll give it to Armistice and they'll give us, $20 million for 20 million shares, it seems like. And they're paying like $1 a share, $1.90 in this case. But like, I think if we were to make another run up, dilute when we're higher. Don't do it down here. That's why we gapped down and we ended up down here in the dirt. So, Hustle said last year, yep, 5 years more of like 5-year play. Yeah, I mean, you can be long. If it all depends. Like, if they turn this thing around, we come out of I think we're going to be in a recession. If we come out of the recession, they're still kicking. They're going to be fine, and they'll turn things around as long as the shipping rates don't go absolutely nuts. And they probably need to find a contingency plan where if stuff goes wrong with China, that's their only they couldn't be like, oh, well, we got factories in Mexico, we can just switch our stuff to there. Like, it was very much dependent on China, and so they got stuck with it. So, try to get some water home. Yeah, I mean, so I wrote them and I was like, listen, I think you guys should register an ATM. That way, if you get a random squeeze and it ends up like at 5, you guys can raise cash at 5. And now they're going to be fighting against Armistice, who is probably not going to be happy if they issue out an ATM. But like, I don't really care because I'm pretty sure Armistice is the one shorting them. So, where's the scotch? You know what? It's been a while. I probably could do scotch. They want to go have a drink with me? I'll have one with you guys. Hold on one second. Let me grab my scotch. All right. You convinced me to have a scotch. All right. Would you like to hear me pour it? We can do some ASMR. There we go. Get a couple fingers worth. I don't even have it on the rocks. I'm I'm just drinking it straight up. Actually, I have what's called I guess it's like a little barrel, so I kind of age it myself. All right, we had an interesting day. I'm up pretty big on GNS, so I can have a celebratory drink with you guys. Hopefully, it gaps up tomorrow, and I can kind of watch and see where it's going. But I would love to see ATER just run. I think most of us would. So what do you guys want to look at? What do you want to do? You want to just talk about stuff? I don't really care. He's already there. He's got a Manhattan. Nice. A little simple sugar. Do you use orange peel and cherry? Actually, I had a really good Manhattan made with Pendleton. You guys ever had Pendleton? It's Pendleton whiskey. I don't know what it was, but it was really good. Pendleton whiskey. I think it's Canadian. Pendleton whiskey. Yeah. Bartender made it really well. It was like a special bottle of Pendleton. Not super expensive either, but it's pretty good. Yeah, they've got a 10-year aged oak. Yeah, I picked up a bottle the other day, and I like that one. It's pretty smooth, and especially with a, yes, and bitters, yes. Oh, I do have bitters. I should put a drop or two in there. But yeah, I really like the flavor of Pendleton. It's one of the, it's got good reviews too, if you guys ever look it up. But if you want a whiskey to give somebody, they're not super expensive and they're pretty good. So if BBBY doesn't get traction tomorrow, what closing price should retail be content with? I mean, I would imagine most retail right now is bag holding. I'm bag holding on BBBY. I got like a $6 average. It got close the other day, but I mean, we can pull up BBBY. All right. I mean, here's the thing. You got these gaps, these huge gaps up here. But here's the thing also. You left a gap down here. So it may be better before it may get worse before it gets better. So technically, we could be in a bull flag kind of scenario where it goes like this and then pops again. And then maybe we fill one of these gaps. But that would be... Here, so we can probably remove this now because that didn't hold. So, I mean, you left gaps down here, here, and you left these huge gaps up here. For me, I've been looking at it who isn't bag holding? Yeah, I mean, the majority of us that are in retail have been just hammered on the last couple months. And so we finally showed a little bit of life in January, and that may have to do with, swap cycles. Usually they're 2-year swap cycles. So if you looked at when GME last ran, the big one, it was in January. I mean, it started before that, but by the time it hit January, it kind of went nuts. So, it may have something to do with these swaps. And, DFV was a very smart guy who also had access to a lot of actual professional tools because he worked for a big thing. And so if he was really nerding out and was looking into swap things and really timing things out, I mean, he would have timed it really well, and he bought some leaps on GameStop when it was back at $2. And I do remember when he was talking about it, I didn't see it. I had heard on Reddit this guy that was talking about GameStop, and I rolled my eyes. And then I eventually caught up and started reading the DD and was like, oh my God, this guy's right. But I dismissed it at first because I was like, oh, I mean, GameStop, it's GameStop. And then, once I actually read the D, I was like, oh, I think I got in the teens before the split, obviously. So I don't know what that would be now, but I guess the equivalent of like whatever. What would we split last, 4-1 or 3-1, something like that? So, but anyway, like I guess if I was in the teens and let's guess I was 16 or 17 divided by, it would be like getting in at $4 a share nowadays, and the stock's sitting there at like 19. So it's the equivalent of buying in down here. So that's when I got into GameStop. You got some tax harvesting, yeah. But yeah, so like with GameStop, like I bought in down here my first couple shares. I bought all the way up. I mean I bought some shares, 400 something at some point because I was just finding money and throwing it in. So I averaged up on a lot of it, but I did get a good chunk of shares down here at this like $4 level basically after the split. And so yeah, Wall Street Bets, it really just, I mean, I used to laugh, like cackle. I would be like laughing. My wife would be like looking at me like I'm crazy. And she's like, what's so funny? And I would like show her like the memes, and I would show her the videos with all the stuff. And I'm like just rolling. And it's not like that anymore. Like it used to be like a lot of fun in there. And now it's just like, ugh. So. But this is a stock that I do think at some point, like this is a critical. I drew this out in yellow. Maybe I should put it in a different color. But I don't know. What do you want to make it? Not blue, but here, make it like purple. Maybe lighter. There. This has been a really critical level with GameStop, and you can see they pushed it down, they let it come back up, and it touched off there. But this is something where I think if they break above this thing and it kind of consolidates well, it will go back up into like this range. Possibly like around here-ish, which would be like $34. So, have you ever heard of Pickle Financial? Out of everyone I have seen on the internet, you and Pickle are the most knowledgeable. So Pickle is Gurk, and Gurk and I have talked before. I DM'd him. I was part of his group for a while. When I mentioned ATER to him, and I kind of like threw out some things to him, he looked at it. He was like, "Yeah, it probably can move up." And then when I put it out in the Pickle Financial, they absolutely just like raked me over the coals for talking about anything other than GameStop. And so, and then so I have talked to Gark before. I do respect him. I think he's got a lot of great knowledge, and so I respect him enough where I wanted to like run by some of the Tyrion stuff with him. And he kind of just looked at it and said he would have his quants look at it, but at that point, the Tyrion had kind of like fallen off, and then I don't think we talked after that because I was dealing with obviously the aftermath of everyone being like, "What happened?" And I'm going, "Well, it looks like Armistice sold the entirety of their shares, so one of the people that we were betting on holding as being long, within like a week of them getting their shares, they sold them, like all of them. So they went from like 8 million shares to like nothing, and it moved the stock down, and then retail started bailing, and then I'm trying to explain that all these FTDs, the gamma ramp, all this stuff, but I mean at that point it didn't matter. So then I'm just an idiot. It's fine because I am an idiot, but you can be right about a lot of things, but unless the SEC was actually going to enforce anything, there's not a whole lot you can do. And that's kind of what you find out when you listen to. Do you have that link? I will even give that guy for having the CEO of Torchlight on there. I remember a professional market professional said it would be 30 where it would squeeze. Yeah, 22 is basically this critical line for GME, and once it kind of gets up in there, I think it's going to be interesting to see because it. I guess the way I should say it is, liquidity is drying up, and liquidity is important because liquidity is what allows the market to be the market. And what happens when you start having a lack of liquidity is the bid ask gets really like far apart. And so these market makers are trying to keep the people happy and being able to buy and sell GameStop and being able to when they hammer it down, it's not because tons of people are selling. It's just because they're able to hammer it down because no one's selling really. So if you have not a lot of buying pressure, because all the buying pressure they can move off the exchange, right? So they can sit there and route retail's order in bulk and match them up with sells, and then they can basically negate the buying pressure. But, Dirty, I was talking about the, sorry, my ADD. I was talking about the one with the Torchlight CEO. But specifically, he was talking about, they move it off of there, so... Yeah, I mean, I do enjoy Girk because he's kind of like the grumpy. He's like your grumpy buddy who you're like, hey man, want to talk stocks with? Oh, why? Everything's So I get it. I think it's fun listening to him because he. Oh, you DM'd it? Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I do think he knows a lot, so I give him a ton of respect in that regard. Is he the nicest guy? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. All right, so I'm going to pull up Discord real quick so I can do this. I want to grab the link and I'll give it to you guys. But this is a really interesting interview that Dirty found, and I want to give him full credit because he's the one that gave it to me, and I watched it and I was like, okay, that has a lot to do with, honestly, Ethereum, even. So. But yeah, and I'm still, here's the thing. I'm always going to be, I'm no guru. I am not somebody. Girk actually worked for a financial institution apparently, and then left and became a retail trader. But I've never worked in the finance industry. This is just something I like doing, so I just kind of nerd out and I try to study it as much as I can. So, do I think Wes Christensen's onto something? Oh, I absolutely do. Here's the thing. So all these rules that the SEC has, most of them aren't enforced. And once you kind of learn how all this stuff works, there's too many loopholes. So, for example, when you're long, you have to report a position. But when you're short, you don't have to report a position, which is very, very strange. Because if you start thinking about it, and they're like, well, people could, hammer on you if they knew you were short. But it doesn't really matter because the truth is when you don't report that information, then weird and bad things can happen. So, it makes me super unsympathetic to shorts because they're not just shorting, one company. They're shorting, every small company that needs cash. And what they do is they just constantly push them down until they have to dilute at lower levels, and then they can basically death spiral all these small caps down at the same time. They're basically making millions of dollars just hammering companies and never giving them a shot. So unless they have some sort of miraculous turnaround, when they need cash, they're already in the dirt, and so they have to dilute at the lowest levels. Look at Ethereum. Ethereum, every time they diluted, it was in the dirt, right? And that's going to make your shares worth less. It's going to make retail investors bail on you, and then it's just they're shorting any emerging growth. Yeah, you're right, Random. So it's just it's a vicious cycle because they know that these companies all need cash, and so it's an easy target. But it's also beating up the cripple. It's okay if that's what you want to do, but that's what they do. They target weak companies that might have had a shot if they didn't get involved in the stock market with these shorts just hammering on them. So I don't like shorts. I mean, I understand that there are times when it's a good and healthy thing, but it's, to be honest with you, the times that I've seen that it's a good and healthy thing are so few and far between. Like Enron, actually worth shorting. Enron was one of those companies that was doing things not legally, and they ended up going out of business. And yes, it was short sellers that were the ones that looked into it and went, oh, wait a second, there's something wrong here, because nobody else was looking into them doing that. But like, so someone taking the other side of that was what exposed them for what the crimes they did. But that's like a 1 in a like billion chance that that actually is a good thing. Whereas like, it seems like when you're just hammering on like small caps, it's not really fair. So yeah, I mean, Tesla is another one. Like, I would tell you right now that I think Tesla was naked shorted, massively. Yeah, you're right. It can be good, but for the most part, it's abused, and that's the truth about it. So, you know, there's a huge difference though between altruism and then also just taking advantage of a system. And I feel like most shorts right now are taking advantage of the system. And if they want to do it, they should be having to report their positions, and then people should be checking up on that to see what's going on, so this naked shorting stops happening. And they're spoofing, and they're doing all sorts of things, and so like, it just, I don't know, I don't like it. The reason why I go in here, GrannyBot says short hood FTX exposure. Do we have a GrannyBot in here? We need one. None of these stocks are GrannyBotting yet. I bet you if GNS keeps running, we'll get some bots in here if I keep talking about them. If I just put like GNS, like stream, I bet you we get bots if they start running much more, because they need people to sell. But like, those bots were a clear indication when Ethereum was running last time that like they were in a bad position because they started actively seeking out my stream. So do I think Wes Christian's work will be rewarded? It's going to take a long time, is my honest opinion. And I'm a realist, so like, I think that nobody wants to fix the market. Like, that's the honest thing. Like, the SEC rules don't allow for growing companies. Just saying a company is bad because they don't understand it doesn't give them a valid reason. Yeah. So, but I think with Wes Christensen, like, it's a good fight he's fighting. It also takes a long time to gather evidence, because anything you prove in a court of law needs to be like rock solid. Because if you come in there just being like, we know that they're doing this, we just don't know how they're doing this, you're not going to win the case. So, random, I'm a bot. Granny bot. You didn't have green eyes on the granny, though. Yeah, I mean, Hustle, you're absolutely right. And I know you passed the bar, so you understand law probably better than the majority of us in here. And that's why you also recommended me that I had to be careful what I said, because obviously there was probably, I'll remember be smart about this. There's most likely a chance that, some things that were not above board might have happened at times, right? On most of these stocks that we've talked about. That's just the honest truth, because like, when you see, for example, on GNS, 270 million shares traded on what was it? Yeah, 270 million shares traded today on a stock that has a 10 million float. So you're telling me a stock that has 10 million shares that are available to the public traded 270 million in volume. That's not right. There's no way that's a legitimate number, which means that they're going to have FTDs piling up. They'll go on Reg Show, all this stuff. It's just, yeah. But this is also like part of the problem is like, when you interfere intentionally with the company's business to a detriment, that's illegal. Yeah, it is, but nobody enforces it because the SEC doesn't enforce it. I sent the SEC evidence of what was going on in Ethereum and never heard anything back. Never did. Like I called, I put a formal complaint in. They contacted me back. I spoke to a woman on the phone and sent her information, and nothing ever happened. Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm affiliated with him. I know him, and he responded back to me when I tried to talk to him on DM, and because I was part of his Discord. I think I did leave it though, just because after I got like hounded after I presented a Tyrion to them, they were like hounding me. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna leave. I don't want to be here. They did have some fun stuff going on there with their pigeon whales or whatever. But yeah, I did speak to him. I think I screenshotted some people that were asking about it, but it was mainly just, I had questions for him that I thought, Tyrion's numbers didn't make sense, and I wanted to show him. And he and I actually agreed on that GME, the market makers, were not properly hedging some of the options chains in the past. So we have talked to each other on Reddit and Discord before. But yeah, he's not like my BFF or anything. I'm a small look. We got 19 people in here. His streams have thousands in there, so totally different atmosphere. I only do this 2 days a week now. Just want to share anything I can with anyone that wants to listen. So, 150 million shares traded on a 37 million share company yesterday. Yep, like these things don't make sense. So he's listening to Upstart, GME, and Fubu. Fubu, or is that the wait, Fubu? The Muffin Man is here. I'm drinking my scotch. Okay, let's take a look. I'm just curious why he's in on Fubu. Oh, Fubu TV. That's right. Okay, I was like, isn't Fubu like the 90s, like, For Us Bias brand? But he's talking about Fubu. Okay. So there's a gap below us, but there are some gaps above us. So this thing did squeeze at one point here. Yeah, I think I actually bought some leaps, like 2024 leaps, and I'm pretty sure they're all like dead. Because it had one little run here, and then it's been consolidating. There is a gap here, though, that they kind of need to fill. So, like, one more push down is where I would probably enter, and then at that point, I would be fine with it. Yeah, but I mean, Fubu TV, I think, if I remember correctly, they were the ones that did the NFL and some other like streaming things that you can watch your team wherever you want. I did actually order it because one time at my friend's house, and I think they were giving away like a 5-day free trial. So I was able to watch the game at my friend's house because he didn't have cable TV, and I was like, all right, if you got streaming, then I'll just order Fubu on my like trial thing and then cancel it, and that's what I did. It actually crashed the game a couple times, so I wasn't super impressed by it. But I mean, maybe it was just a glitch. But the like stream crashed a couple times when I was watching the game. We had to restart it. But yeah, I think at one point I bought a leap on Fubu TV. So I'll have to check and see how that's doing. My guess is it's down a lot though, because I'm pretty sure I bought it sometime in 2021, which was up here, and now we're sitting down here. Did they have a lot of dilution? What was the deal with that? They need cash badly. Wow, they're burning a lot of cash. They have a good amount of dilution, too. Yeah, I don't think that's going to... I don't know about that one. Now, it can run up just because they may want to raise money on the ATM. So, these convertible notes aren't registered. They have an ATM registered right now. They already been diluting about $10 million out of that. So they're going to raise like $350 million on this ATM. So they have the ability to raise more cash. I mean, short interest on it's 24%, 30% ownership. Let's see who owns them. Vanguard, BlackRock, State. So there's some big players own them long. But, I mean, could they be bigger? Sure. But yeah, their servers aren't up to speed yet. Yeah, because I was going to say the game crashed for me. Like, I was watching an NFL game and it crashed like 3 times during the stream. So, this makes me a little bit worried because you have a good amount of dilution on the table and they need to raise cash badly. And if they need to also buy new servers, then they're going to use a lot of that stuff up. So, long term, maybe, but like, I don't know. If you get the whole world doing this, then yeah, maybe. But IPTV is new. I don't know that one. Is that the ticker? Is IPTV? No. So I'm not. This is not one I would be like super. Like I would rather them fill this gap down here and then maybe take a long position, like a 2 or 3 year leap if it's available, like a 2 year leap, and then at like deep in the money, like long leap. Yeah. So that makes me a little bit nervous. What was the other one? Is he said GME and Upstart. Upstart, that's the car company, right? No, wait, that's the other one, right? Upstart. That is a volatile stock. Now this one, let's take a look and just take a look. Was it UPST? They're pretty big. 1.5 or 1.35 billion market cap. Vanguard, Morgan Stanley, BlackRock. Yeah, so they got some big players in on that. It's definitely safer than some of the ones that were, 88 million shares outstanding. What's the deal with them? Upstart is an AI lending partner with banks to expand. Oh, that's right. Upstart's the lending company, right? To like pay off your credit card debt and stuff like that. You know what one I should take a look at? There's one. Anna, what are your plans for your channel for 2023? Ideally, what I want to do is actually put out some educational videos. I need to finish the other ones. I forgot to do it today just because GNS was running and I was watching it a lot and talking to some people. So I need to finish uploading some of the videos and I want to like kind of like put out some of my own just basics, for people that are new to investing and kind of like just start at the beginning, kind of break down. And that way, when I'm talking to people, they're at least a little more, familiar with some of these topics. So, Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs is interesting because Goldman Sachs was one of the stocks that I was looking at, and I went, their banking kind of fell apart. They like wasted a lot of money trying to get their bank off the ground, and not only that, but like mergers and acquisitions have all gone down significantly. So like their banking sector is not great. And so, cutting jobs is obviously the first thing they can do to trim, but like they did really well under Trump because I'm pretty sure he was feeding them information, to be honest with you, or like someone in that camp was feeding them information because they made all the right calls when he was in office. And it seems like since that's he's no longer in office, that they're not getting as much good information and they're missing on stuff. So yeah, I mean, we could definitely do some open like streams if you guys want. I think that'd be a fun thing to do. Um, DZ and I have done it before, but DZ I think has been really busy at work, so he hasn't had the time to come on and hang out with us. Yeah, Trump and Mnuchin were good friends, and I mean he made him treasurer, but I mean he worked for Goldman for years, and there was like multiple connections. There was another guy for the SEC that they appointed, which it was like one of the funniest things, and it's funny as in like funny sad. So they appointed this guy, or maybe they were trying to appoint him, and I don't know if he ever went through, but he was a Goldman guy who had like ties to like all these different banks, and so he had a conflict of interest with like pretty much everyone, and they were trying to make him like part of the like SEC, and he was getting grilled under like some questions, which was like, okay, if we make you part of the SEC, can you actually, like, if you were to go ahead and say need to, like, drop the hammer on somebody, can you do it? He's like, no, I'd have to recuse myself because of conflict of interest. And so basically it was like every major like player he had worked for at some point and had like a conflict of interest. So that just kind of summarizes the SEC for you, because like they were going to appoint somebody, or maybe did appoint somebody, that basically couldn't do a thing because he had constant conflicts of interest. It is so rigged. 10x. I don't know that one. Let's see. 10x. Nope, they don't have it in here. Let's see. 10x. Oops. I put 10. 10x. 10x Therapeutics. Looks like they have a tiny gap here. I don't know much about this company, to be honest with you. I mean, I can tell you from this chart that this was a company that, obviously was flying around, and then, I mean, they've had some splits here, split here. So, I mean, this thing's hammered into the ground. Tenting, yeah, it's apparently a stock. I don't know much about it. There is a gap up here at 200 something, but like I don't know much about this. They had a 20-to-1 split back in January. I mean, even if this thing rallies, why is it so volatile? But like seriously, why is it so volatile? Like this thing just, it looks like that's a lot of just chopping. Even down here, I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you a whole lot about this. I'd have to look into their filings and try to find out what the hell, what's going on with them. But like, it's not even filed with Dilution Tracker, so I can't give you like a quick analysis on it. I'd have to look into it. So if you want to, someone's got to pay. You got to hit me up on the DM tomorrow, and we can see if we can pull up the filing and go over it. Maybe we can do it as a group. But yeah, for Hustle, I was gonna say with Goldman, I think Goldman's they did the right thing. They needed to cut some people, but like I don't want to I don't want to buy puts on them, but like they seem to be in some trouble. I think, was it GS? Like they've got a lot of gaps down here, and if you kind of look at when they kind of bull gapped up all this way, I mean, there's a lot of like gaps to fill down here. And if you kind of notice, they were down here, and then Trump took over, and then they went all the way up here. And then when did Trump get out? Was it 2020? Or maybe it was down here. When he was like 16. So this actually, was this under Biden? They went up that high? Maybe Biden's got ties to them. Let's take a look. No, 2021 was still, it was the 2022 cycle, right? Credit Suisse. I don't want to. I don't want to do Credit Suisse. Oh my God. All right, hold on a second. When was the election? Presidential election was... When do you get sworn in? Sworn in. January 2021. So a lot of this run actually came under Biden, interestingly enough, right? Because this is 2021. This would have been January, right? So that'd be like here-ish. But there was a good amount of these things that happened at the end of Trump and then into Biden, and then it's been kind of chopping since then. But there's still a lot of gap downs. So a lot of bull gaps that need to fill. Do Armistice. They're not publicly traded, are they? I don't think they are. I'm sure they're not traded, right? Nah, they're not publicly traded. They're probably a private hedge fund. Yeah, January 20th, 2021 was when the changeover happened. Yeah, I mean, if you want to, I mean, FAS, I don't know if you know this ticker, but FAS is the inverse 3x bear. And if you look at all those gap downs. This thing's been down here for a while, but look at all those gaps. This is one that eventually is going to fill some of these gaps. And I mean, banking's been fine for a long time, but like that's a lot of gaps. UVXY. Wait, UVXY. There we go. Another one with a ton of gaps. The VIX one. I think some major event's going to happen. I think we're going to get a surprise out of somewhere, like World War III. China's going to implode. I don't know. Who knows? But do the CEOs of all the banks collude with each other? Absolutely. In my opinion. I can't say that as a fact. I don't know for a fact they collude with each other, but they seem to all be very chummy with each other. So I've never done the digging on that. But hold on, let me see what time it is. Yeah, I gotta get off. Yeah, some major event's going to happen. I mean, these are all the gaps on the VIX here. Like this is now remember, UVXY covers the M1 and M2 futures. It doesn't directly correlate with the VIX. So this is trading the VIX futures. But I can tell you right now that this thing has a ton of gaps, and it's been down here pinned for a long time. The VIX hasn't ran basically since COVID. So not saying every one of these gaps is going to fill, but at some point the VIX will spike again. And that's probably going to be the same time frame when the FAS and all sorts of other bearish things will happen. I just think at some point these banks are they're going to slip and something's going to happen. So, all right, I'm going to jump off here, guys, because I'm getting tired, and I promised my wife we'd watch the show before I went to bed. So, do you subscribe to a soft landing, or do you think there's going to be a black swan collapse? I think there's going to be at some point. I don't believe in the soft landing. They keep saying it. I don't believe it. I mean, I'll leave you guys with this. The trend is your friend. What does this trend tell you what it's doing right now? This trend is showing you that we are going down and we are making lower lows each time, right? We come up here, we bounce off resistance, go make a lower low. Come up here, bounce off resistance, lower low. Come up here, bounce off resistance. Oh, we test it again. Can we break through? Nope, we're rejecting, and we will come down and make lower lows. And at some point, we will get some sort of weird news, and it's going to send the VIX spiking, and it's going to send the banks into a tailspin, and then everything's going to be imploding, and that's going to fill some of these gaps. I don't know if it's going to fill this gap down here, but it would probably fill some of these gaps down here, and the world will be ending, and then all of a sudden, magically, they'll probably like turn on the money printer again, and then everything will be fine. Now, will that be over here? Maybe. It may be, one of these things where comes around, hangs out here, and then pops back up, and we do make a new bull run. But we're talking about like further out, like 2024, 2025. I think in the meantime, we're going to be kind of heading down into this range, and until they pop up here, back test and head up, then I don't believe that's what a soft landing would do. A soft landing basically would be we fall down, we pop up over back test, and then we start making higher highs. But at this point right now, everything indicates this thing going downwards. So yeah, like something is going to happen in this time frame around here, like August, September of later this year, maybe sooner. I don't know, but something's going to happen. Something's got to give. And at some point, if you actually were to draw maybe across here, you would be in April, maybe. Let's see. I'm not going to draw it out now because I have to actually do it. And it would probably be as it's descending here. If we were to pull out some of these points. Yeah, July. You're right. Random. That's crazy. And yes, collusion with the banks. Yeah, there's so much wrong with our financial system. Like, it's not fair. For right now, I tell people this all the time. Report stuff to the SEC. Call your senators, write your senators. Nobody seems to do it except for me. But I'm one of those people that I don't care if I know that it's not going to make a difference. If enough people do it, then it might actually make a difference. But that's the same thing with like voting. Like, you have to get out there, and you also have to see through a lot of the BS. Like, here's the pure and simple fact. If you follow the money, you can understand politics, you can understand why the world works, because money is just one of those things that, like, it's the modern day, ability to provide, right? So these people have this massive amounts of wealth, and they want to keep it. So what do? You buy the press, you buy your politicians, and you do everything in your power to remain in power. That's how politics works. They're all in with somebody. Why? Because they get campaign contributions made to them, and then they kind of owe somebody. And so later on, when they have their lobbyists writing off stuff, they might slip in a bill that will help them out, make an extra 2-3% on a couple $1 billion, and they'll get even richer, and that's the way it works. And so as long as you understand that, you can see through a lot of the BS. So that's why I tell people, I'm like, anything you read in the mainstream media, you need to basically understand where they're coming from and why. So anyway, I'll jump off here. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. I'll be on the Discord. So you guys have a great evening, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. All right, thanks for hanging out. Oh, and last thing, I will post the link to the Discord. So if anyone has stuck in this long and listened for the first time, you can come and join us and hang out. So here you go. There we go. All right. You guys have a great evening.